So what is NMN? NMN is the precursor to NAD+, which is a central player here and it is vital for life itself. They always say with no NAD+ in your body, within 30 seconds you would be dead because it's so vital for so many different functions in the body. It is the critical coenzyme that is found in the body that regulates so many chemical reactions and processes in the body. So NMN, nuclear monotide mononucleotide, is a modified vitamin B3 niacin, and it is an optimized way to increase NAD+. NAD+ is essential for energy levels, for circadian rhythms, for metabolism, cognitive function, and even healing. It does a lot of different things. And as we get older, our NAD+ levels get lower, which is a big part of the reason why we age. Except if we increase NAD+, we can decrease the effects of aging on our body, which is why it is such an appealing option. There are a few different ways to increase NAD+, except the most effective and optimized way is NMN. So who is David Sinclair and why does he matter? He's a Harvard professor, a longevity researcher, and an author on a few books about longevity. He originally rose to prominence in popularizing the compound resveratrol, which is found in red wine, for its ability to decrease the effects of aging. David Sinclair tried to do a similar thing with resveratrol that he's doing now with NMN, in that he popularized the research, then he tried to privatize the compound through a proprietary blend so that he could raise the price to whatever he wanted so he can make the most profits that he wanted. Except it was found to be under effective and eventually forgotten, and then David Sinclair eventually moved on to the next thing, which brings NMN into the picture. So for the past few years, he's been popularizing NMN through his books, through his talks, through his podcast appearances, through his media accounts, and he co-founded a company, Metro International Biotech, which throughout the past year has been lobbying the FDA to reclassify NMN from a dietary supplement to a drug so that it can't be sold over a counter and it has to be sold in prescription, so that he can promote and popularize and make profit of his proprietary blend of NMN, NMN. After months of lobbying the FDA, eventually the news broke that NMN would get reclassified from a supplement to a drug. And the FDA were able to do this because they're corrupt. And the FDA can wiggle around its own laws and just make whatever it wants to happen. And that is what they did. So they decided to reclassify this compound. Even though NAD+ is something we naturally have in our body already, they feel like they can own a part of our biological process. So I don't know. So the FDA sent letters to all major companies and corporations selling NMN, including Amazon, to cease sales of this compound by March 1st, 2023, which is pretty soon. Obviously, after this, there was massive backlash from every area of the internet, similar to what happened with the NAC, and there was a lot of pressure on David Sinclair to make a statement to what he thinks about everything going on, and he eventually did, except a month later. And it's kind of interesting why it would take him so long to respond to something like that. So the general theme of the response is that he distances himself from the company, saying he has no role in the decisions of the company in any aspect. And then at the same time sings the praises of his company and the FDA for reclassifying NMN as a drug. So it seems like he doesn't want the bad press, except he wants the good profits. And he co-created the demand, and now he's trying to control the supply, which is a smart business move, except a dumb people move. And he claims throughout that it's all about NMN safety, that a lot of people are selling bunk NMN. That could be true, except not overly true, because there's a lot of reputable sources that you can buy NMN from. An alternative that you can use to NMN is nicotinamide riboside, which is a similar precursor to NAD+, except it does it in a less efficient way, except it also has some other benefits too. So it's more of a trade-off. Except conveniently, there was a study that came out just prior to FDA's announcement about NMN that NR could cause brain cancer. What a coincidence. Definitely was not planned, you know. It seems fairly coordinated, and even the study is more just a headline with a study attached to it, which is behind a paywall. So I don't know. So basically in this study, they gave NR to mice with triple negative breast cancer, which is a very late stage of breast cancer essentially. And they found an association that it could promote metastasis, which is basically when cancer spreads from one part of the body to another part of the body, which it could possibly spread to the brain. The study says there is a link. The article claims it is the cause, except association is not causation. And giving any nutrient that increases cellular health to someone that has cancerous cells is going to worsen those cancerous cells, because it can help protect cellular function for healthy cells and for cancerous cells, because it can increase the cancer cell's ability to stay alive. This is something we've known for decades, that if you can improve cellular function, you can increase cancerous cells' ability to stay alive, that you'll worsen cancer. And this risk exists with a lot of different things, like increasing mitochondrial function, increasing neurotrophic factors, increasing ATP, adenosine triphosphate. It's similar to if you have cancer, your house is on fire, right? So if you take a bunch of compounds that increase NAD+, antioxidants, increase mitochondrial function, you're gonna worsen that fire. It's like putting oil or gasoline on that fire and you're gonna worsen it. Except if you do that when there is no fire, there is no issue. So it very much depends on the situation. So if you have stage 4 cancer, you should probably avoid any compound that increases these, except if you don't, you're completely fine to take compounds that affect these different processes. And this isn't something we've just discovered, this is something we've known about for decades. And in scientific studies, you can often modify the results and the outcome of the study to whatever narrative that you want to put out. And I feel like that's what's happening in this case. So to summarize, firstly, he popularized the compound. Now he's trying to privatize the compound while simultaneously promoting propaganda about the alternative compounds. So it's very much like a bottleneck effect. The FDA did a similar action with NAC last year, in that they tried to reclassify it as a drug, even though it's been sold as a dietary supplement since the 60s. The 60s? Except what happened with that is the FDA took the policy of enforcement discretion, in that they'll still have that classification difference up, except they're not going to enforce it. So it's still sold on Amazon. A lot of independent sellers still sell it. So that could happen with this, except the reason that it won't happen in this case is because Metro Biotech, a company worth hundreds of millions of dollars, is continuously lobbying the FDA. With NAC, there was no big company continuously advocating for its reclassification. With NMN, there is. So there is more pull there, and it is a different situation. This might encourage the sale of compounds that are similar to NMN except different, like NR, which is safe contrary to the false study that I mentioned. Except this is mainly localized to the United States. The rest of the world won't be as affected, or won't be affected at all. A troubling trend is that the medical world usually follows what the US does, so it could affect other parts of the world. My closing thoughts is, even that David Sinclair, is trying to privatize his compound, I think it is a net positive thing that people know about it. The unfortunate tale of the US is that oftentimes profits are chosen over people, and I think this is one of those times, unfortunately.